Yo, what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. And today I want to talk about the Orlando Magic, one of my favorite young teams in the NBA, and a team that I feel like is kind of underrated when we talk about the best young cores and the teams that have the most special and bright futures. The Magic are building something incredible down in Orlando. How the way that they've navigated the draft, the young players that they've picked up, it is a really great core brewing there in Orlando. And it all started last year at the trade deadline when they finally decided to commit to a rebuild, something that I honestly felt was like 3 years too late, but better late than never. And it ended up being a good time. They were able to deal Aaron Gordon to the Nuggets, Evan Fournier to the Celtics, but most importantly, Nikola Vucevic, sending him, the guy who's kind of the face of their franchise for the last few seasons, to the Chicago Bulls for Wendell Carter Jr. and first round picks in 2021 and 2023. We haven't found out what that 2023 pick is going to be yet, but that is another player that could be added to this core. I'm guessing the Bulls make the playoffs, so it won't be a great draft pick, but it is still another asset to keep in mind nonetheless. The 2021 pick ended up becoming Franz Wagner, who had a phenomenal rookie season, averaging 15.2 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, and 2.9 assists, while shooting 46.8% from the field and 35.4% from three, with really solid defense as well. He was one of the best young two-way players in the league. He made all-rookie first team and quickly established himself as a franchise cornerstone. He was a guy that I know from being on NBA Twitter, a lot of people did not want their favorite teams to take him. He was seen as kind of a guy that wasn't really the sexy pick in the draft. He felt like a guy that was kind of safer, wouldn't be anything incredible, but he proved all those people wrong immediately. All the people who were hesitant saying, oh, I hope my team doesn't draft Franz, he proved a lot of the doubters wrong and became immediately one of the best players, at least in his first season, amongst what is a really stacked draft class this past year. The other piece of the Vucevic trade, Wendell Carter, also established himself this past season as a franchise building block. I've always been a fan of his. I kind of see him as someone who could be an Al Horford type guy where he's not going to be your best player in a championship team, but he's a player that can contribute in so many different facets of the game that any team would want him. He can play solid defense. He can stretch the floor a bit. He can run elbow handoffs, be a solid playmaker out of the post. Whatever you need him to do, Al Horford can do that, and I think Wendell Carter can fit kind of a similar mold. Wendell Carter last season put up 15, 10.5, and 2.8 assists, shooting 52.5% from the field. He had a game with 30 and 15 as well on 80% shooting. The first Magic player since Dwight to do that, and only the third when you include Dwight and Shaquille O'Neal, so pretty great company for Wendell Carter. He also averaged 19.1 points per game, 11.3 rebounds, and 3.1 assists on 57.4% shooting over his last 15 games. He's only 23 years old, and he's doing all of that. He's putting up phenomenal numbers that were way better than what he was putting up in Chicago, and this change of scenery has really allowed him to kind of grow and develop his game and open up to a lot more possibilities for what he can do on the court and the ways that he can produce for his team. He projects to be their center of the future in my mind, unless they go out and get like a Victor Wembanyama or something in this upcoming draft. Then things get a little more questionable with the fit, but I think for right now, he can easily be their center for the future, and there are a lot of people who are kind of making some noise that maybe he makes an all-star case this upcoming season. If he puts up numbers anything similar to what he was putting up in those last 15 games, if he's putting up 19 points and 11 rebounds over the course of a full season, he's going to make some noise, at least as someone who should be in considerations, not necessarily make the game, because I don't think the Magic will be incredible, but Wendell Carter is a guy that clearly is going to be an impactful player for many years to come. And the fact that the Magic were able to get him as one of the main pieces from what they blew up last season, I think that's a huge win for them at that trade deadline. And then, of course, this past season, they won the draft lottery and added Paulo Banquero in the draft at the first overall pick. And in Summer League, he looked like one of the best players on the court. It honestly looked like, which is not usual for a rookie, that he shouldn't even be out there. It looked like he should just be kind of chilling on the bench with the other vets. He was that good in Summer League. He's incredibly polished offensively. He's got a really fluid game that just feels like it'll fit super well into what the Magic are building. He's got defensive potential, and he slots in immediately as their number one scorer option on a team that currently lacks one. He gives them a focal point to build around too. And the fact that now you have Franz, Paolo, and Wendell Carter Jr. as your front court for the future is incredible in the first couple years of their rebuild. They all complement each other extremely well. Each have a versatile game where they can play on ball, they can play off ball. I think they play well off of each other too. Like I said, with Franz and Wendell Carter, they're both solid defenders, and if Paolo can find some of that defensive potential that he has, they're going to be a nightmare to face on the opposing end on offense for any other young teams or any team down the line in general that's trying to compete against them. They probably have the best young front court in the league, period, at this point. With Paolo, Franz, Wendell Carter, that is a crazy three-headed monster that they have that are all 23 or younger. That front court is already something special. And then you go ahead and you look at the backcourt. You've got Jalen Suggs, who was taken 5th overall last draft. He really struggled offensively in his rookie season, averaging just 11.8 points per game on 36, 21, and 77% splits. He was really bad offensively. Not to really sugarcoat anything, he really struggled. But I do think as a guard, that's one of the toughest positions to play transitioning into the league. He also missed around half the season with injury, and it's really hard to get into a rhythm as a rookie offensively, never mind as a rookie with injury issues, also playing the point guard position on a team that frankly just wasn't super talented last season. I expect him to be much more efficient this upcoming season. You know, he's not shooting like 40% from 3, but I don't think he's going to shoot 21% again. I think he'll probably be right around the 30% mark, a little bit lower probably, somewhere between 28 and 30, which is a lot better. But mainly, he showed a lot of defensive versatility and potential. The Magic had their best defensive ratings last season with Suggs on the floor. He gets a ton of deflections and showed a ton of potential as a lockdown guard defender. And I think that's where he's really going to come to fruition. To me, his ceiling is kind of like a Drew Holiday light type player. He's not going to be like defensive player of the year caliber like Drew Holiday is, but I think he can make some all defensive teams, be a guard who can knock down some shots for you, make some plays for others, because he also showed some playmaking chops here and there too. He's a guy that I think could be that Drew Holiday light type player that is super valuable to a championship team. Even if he's not like some superstar caliber player, I still think Jalen Suggs is going to be pretty good. I think there are a lot of people that are unfairly writing him off after one rookie season where, like I said, he was, dealing with a lot of injuries. The Magic were still trying to figure out their identity a little bit, and he had to compete with time with other guards like Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz, who played some games. It was just kind of a little bit of a mess while the Magic were entering their first full year of rebuild. I think once his role becomes more defined, now that they've got kind of a more defined young core that they're building around, I think Suggs will be much better. And that actually brings me to Markelle Fultz, who I think will start in the backcourt alongside Jalen Suggs this season. He only played 18 games last year and 8 the season prior, as he's been dealing with an ACL tear and recovery. It's unfortunate because Markelle coming to Orlando was a great opportunity for him to kind of get a fresh slate. A lot went on with Philly where he all of a sudden kind of forgot to shoot, and fans weren't really happy with that. Philly fans don't give you a ton of grace, and it was just all around a mess. So the Philly needed to move on, he needed to move on, and the Magic stepped in and picked him up, and he's been really good when he has played for them. He's shown potential as a phenomenal finisher. He's shown high-level playmaking potential, a guy who can get to the basket and finish at a high level, as well as being able to operate out of the pick and roll with guys like Franz, Paolo, and Wendell, is very valuable to this Magic team. So they just need him to stay healthy. His three-point shooting still has a ways to go, but he doesn't really need that. He doesn't have to be that elite shooter or even elite scorer with the talent around him. When you have offensive players like Franz Wagner, who's really efficient and can be a pretty solid offensive outputting guy, you've got Paulo Banquero, who can put up points. If there's one thing we know about Paolo's game, he's going to score a lot, really polished offensively to start off his career. Wendell Carter has shown potential too. Fultz doesn't need to go out and be this elite level scorer. All he has to do is be a high level playmaker, get to the basket, and mainly stay healthy. If he can do those things, he's going to be incredibly effective. I think he could be a most improved player candidate this season, especially when you consider the fact that now that you've got a guy like Paolo, you've got Franz entering year 2. We saw what Wendell Carter can do, towards the end of last season. If he puts up anything similar to those numbers, this Magic team is going to be far better in terms of spacing and offensive potential, giving Fultz a lot more options to kick out to, as well as just kind of spacing the floor for him to go and get drives, which he's very good at finishing, one of the best guards in the league at finishing these past few seasons when he has played. It just opens the game up a lot more for Markelle, and I think will give him a lot more efficient opportunities to score. Then you've got Cole Anthony, who averaged 16.3 points per game last season in his sophomore year. Also, I learned I just share a birthday with him, which is pretty cool. But he showed potential as a really fun bucket getter at the guard position this past season. He wasn't super efficient, shooting under 40%, around 34% from three, 85% from the line. But the Magic don't have much of a go-to guard scorer heading into this past season, and they needed someone to put up shots, so he took the burden, and he was really fun. He had some really great moments, some really high highs. I do think he'll probably come off the bench this season. If I was putting the lineup together, I think I project him as more of kind of a spark plug guy for this upcoming year. Maybe he continues to make leaps and he ends up taking one of those starting spots from Markelle or Jalen Suggs. But I think for right now, I see him as maybe a potential spark plug off the bench. And if you have a guy like Cole Anthony, who just put up 16.3 points per game in just his second season, if he's their future sixth man, that is a great position to be in, and I think it shows the level of talent that the Magic already have. Then you look at the rest of their roster. They brought back Bamba, who a lot of people, me included, thought was a goner on the team. I really didn't see him coming back, but he's a fun shot blocking, floor stretching center. Excited to see how he plays with the guys on this team. You've got Caleb Houston, who they picked up in the draft, who I think could be a fun connector piece off the bench, can do a little bit of everything. Jonathan Isaac looked like a future defensive player of the year before his ACL injury and then future setbacks. He hasn't played in like 2 years though, so I'm not expecting him to come back and play like that. But if he can just be a solid defensive bench player who can score a couple points per game, that helps a little bit too. And maybe he eventually works his way back to being an all NBA caliber defender. Then you've got a guy like Chuma Okeke has shown some flashes. This Magic roster is loaded with fun young talent. They've got one of the best front courts in the NBA in terms of long-term potential. You've got a really fun backcourt trio with Anthony, Fultz, and Suggs, who I think all have different potentials and really interesting games to them. You've got some fun young pieces off the bench. Additionally, while they're going to be fun this year, they're probably going to be pretty bad. I don't think they'll be a playoff team, which allows them to add another top talent in a stacked draft class. Maybe they end up with like a 7th or 8th pick. Then they also have the Bulls first round pick to, maybe try and trade up too. There is a ton of potential. So they have already this great young core. They're going to add another talent in a stacked draft class. They're only going to keep improving, and they have one of the best young cores in the league. The Orlando Magic are building something special. I truly believe that. I love what they're doing in Orlando, and I feel like more people should be talking about what the Magic are going to do. I think a couple years down the line, they project to be a powerhouse in the Eastern Conference. Those are my thoughts on the Orlando Magic. Let me know what you thought in the comment section below about everything that I said. Do you think the Magic, have the pieces right now? If they just kept this young core going forward, could they be a contender? Do they still need some more pieces? Let me know all of that in the comment section below. I appreciate y'all watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy. I will see you all later. Real One, say it back.